Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
And welcome, excuse me, to our SIGUX webinar. My name is Lori Fox. I'm the past chair of the SIGUX Executive Committee. Today with me, I have Christine Lenz, and you are in for a treat. I saw her presentation at the 2019 conference, and it's fantastic. I have a few announcements as we get going. The first one is that everyone is by default muted. If you would like to unmute and talk, you're welcome to do so. Christy will pause throughout her presentation and ask for questions. You also can enter your questions into the questions area, which I will monitor. And you can raise your hand if you'd like to be unmuted. The session is being recorded. It will be on our YouTube channel next week. We are having our first SIGUX virtual conference this November. We actually have been planning it for almost a year. Now virtual conferences are the norm. We thought we were doing something kind of unusual. But at any rate, the virtual conference is November 10th. The theme of the conference revolves around careers and your first promotion into management. We have some great panels and speakers lined up. We will be opening registration in September, and there's no cost for the conference, so you should watch for that. Our annual conference has been moved to spring. It will be March 14th to 17th, 2021 in San Diego, California. The authors are currently working on their presentations and papers, and we've got some great topics lined up for you this spring. I encourage you to join me in the book club. Our September book, which I have on the end table behind me, is Creative Trespassing, How to Put the Spark and Joy Back into Your Work and Life. And you may wonder, well, I've already got a lot of joy and you should see my spark. I'm about a quarter of the way into the book, and it's a great reminder to encourage you to be happy and have fun at work and try things that are on the creative side, even if you're in a technical role. Discussion begins in Slack. We use our Slack channel for discussions, and we have a hangout scheduled for September 30th. In our book club, you don't have to read the whole book. I encourage you to join the discussion, even if you're interested in the topic, because we absolutely have a great time talking about our books. Then for the November book, we selected What If I Say the Wrong Thing? 25 Habits for Culturally Effective People. And that discussion actually will probably happen at the beginning of December, because the last week of November is usually Thanksgiving. So we'll stretch that out a little bit. We have a webpage on the SIGUX site if you want to see what we have read. And soon we'll be soliciting suggestions for what our lineup will be next year. This year, interestingly enough, we picked all books that were either red or yellow covers. I don't know how that happened, but it's kind of fun. Today in your email, you may have received nomination information for nominating your colleagues for the Penny Crane Award for Distinguished Service and Hall of Fame Awards. If I remember correctly, the deadline for those is December 1st. We will be giving out those awards in the spring at our annual conference. We also have been looking for nominations, and this is a self-nomination for communication awards. Communication awards are part of, I think there's 12 categories currently, and the awards are judged by previous winners. One of the things that I love about our communication awards is that even if you don't win, you get feedback from the judges. So it gives you an opportunity to see what things they recommend that you could do to resubmit your nomination for next year. I want to remind you about SIGUX membership. The biggest membership benefit is a conference discount. You also get a pretty steep pre-conference seminar discount. Gives you access to the ACM Digital Library and all of the papers that have been published by SIGUX over the years. The SIGUX mentoring program will be starting up again this fall for next year's cohort. That's a fantastic program and absolutely beneficial for you, whether you're a mentor or a mentee. And it also gives you an opportunity to participate in our elections. I want to encourage you to stay in touch with SIGUX. SIGUX, to me, is more than just an annual conference. We have the email listserv, a Facebook community, a Twitter account, and we also have a SIGUX Slack instance. And some of our popular channels are the book club, because we talk about the book every other month. Our conference channel, as we get closer to the conference, that's where people will work together to make plans or to ask questions or even talk about their own presentation. The productivity channel, there are quite a few of us that like to share tips about productivity. And Mo Nishiyama also posts questions on our weekly challenge, and those are fun to think about. I don't have in my slide, but one thing that the SIGUX Executive Committee is also working on is we'd like to do some monthly hangouts. And we're working on what they might be focused on. For example, maybe we could do a monthly hangout that talks about getting ready for the upcoming fall semester. And those will be announced soon. So Christy, that and my presentation, wow, my computer is working pretty slow today. Okay, I'm going to turn off my webcam. Christy, I'm going to turn over the presentation to you. And there you go.
Thank you so much. All right, let me get my screen share working here for you guys.
Perfect. You're ready to go.
Great. Well, thanks so much for having me here to do this. Very excited to talk about this again. So this was a topic that I presented at the fall conference last year. And this was taken from lessons I learned from implementing Canvas at Washington University. So the basis of this. So my title is Communications and Teaming for Project Success. I'm Christy Lenz, Washington University. So here's what we're going to be talking about today. Tell you what is teaming and how it's different from teams. I'm going to go spend a lot of our time on communications, team communications, communicating up, down, and out, some pitfalls, and being persistent in how you approach this. So those are our key topics today. So a little bit about WASHU. It's a private top-ranked research institution. We're an R1. We are in St. Louis, Missouri, not in Washington State or in Washington, D.C. About 3,800 faculty, a little over 15,000 students. Those numbers fluctuate, of course, and a little over 16,000 employees. And we have a pretty large IT staff of over 500. And about me, why am I qualified to speak to you about this? I have over 15 years of higher ed IT experience. My entire career has been spent in IT, from when I was just a little baby undergrad all the way up until now. I have a master's in management and I'm PMP certified. I also have a background in communication and training, and I am ITIL trained but not certified. I recently went through the new ITIL Foundations training but have not yet taken my exam. So if any of you have tips for me on the new ITIL exam, I have to take it within the next month. So looking for those tips. Okay, let's jump into our content. What is teaming? So I like this quote from Amy Edmondson, who is credited with creating the word teaming. So teaming is a verb. It's a dynamic activity. It's not bound. It's not static. It's determined by a mindset and practices and not design and structure. So my key takeaways from that are dynamic, and that's what I'm going to focus on today, the dynamic and focused nature of teaming. Another thing I'm going to point out that it's time limited, and I'll dive into what that is here in a few minutes. So you start off with a team. I'm sorry, let me move my box here so I can see my notes. I apologize. One moment. I'm very used to Zoom and not as used to GoTo. So you start off with a team comprised of SMEs, developers, decision makers, etc. The team should have a singular, clear goal, an outcome, a deliverable, and a very set timeline. So for example, you're going to say this team is going to be together for 2 months with a goal of creating a charter, and that's going to be the end of that team. Then you take that team, once that team is gone through its purpose, it starts to break up into different teams. So as the needs of your project or what you're trying to achieve change, you create different teams, and those teams can be comprised of people from the original team and bringing in new people for specific purposes. So you see, you start with your original team, and you have this person who moves into this team 2. This guy moves into team 3. This guy moves into team 4. This guy drops off altogether. Maybe he was an early developer or an engineer and his purpose has served, and so we don't need him anymore. But you see, people move into new teams as that develops. Really important thing to remember is the team, or a single person on the team, should be empowered to make decisions or highly recommend a course of action to decision makers with the expectation of action. So that expectation of action. So if I'm going to make a decision or I'm highly recommending a course of action to a decision maker, I want to have that expectation that there's action going to be taken, that something is going to come out of that. So I know at higher ed, we also run committees, and committees make recommendations, and they often get put on the shelf and dusted off 10 years later. That's not what teaming should be about. It should be about making those really timely, actionable decisions. The team should be able to function fairly independently. That's not saying that they're not going to go out and get information from other people, but they should be fairly self-sufficient to that singular purpose that they were created for. The team should have a well-documented, clear path of communication. And I'm going to show you some examples of that in a few minutes. When the deliverables have been met, again, the team dissolves and members move on to their next team, and team members get changed out. I want to pause and find out if there's any questions before I move on. What is the basis of teaming?
I don't see anything in chat so far.
Great. All right, I'll go ahead and move on. And anybody, feel free to stop me if you have questions before I stop. So again, teams versus teaming. Teams are mostly static and they're continuous throughout the life of a project. A team has multiple goals or more vague goals. So, hey, this team, we're going to do these 10 things, or, oh, we're going to get the project done. But there's no real specific goal, and oftentimes that's not documented when you join a team. What is the goal? What are we looking to achieve? And what is that time box for that? they're often stagnant. You know, you go into meetings and it's like the same agenda time after time. It's very stagnant. There's no clear deliverable or too many deliverables. When you're trying to do too many things, it's hard to focus on one thing. We all know that. They often lose momentum and lose motivation, lose focus. That's a big danger of teams. And they're often, very, very often, not empowered to make decisions. And even if they recommend decisions, those decisions, you know, they don't have that expectation of action. So I want to talk about team communications. So this is an example. This is really small, and I don't expect you to read it. I did have a handout when I did this in person, and I can provide that after the fact. Laurie, I'm sure that's possible to provide this via email or something to the participants.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so this is an example of a communication flow. I don't think I can click on it and make it bigger. If I try, that's probably going to end badly, so I'm not going to try. But this is an example of a documented communication flow for project teams. Each of these boxes that you see here, the different colored boxes, those are teams. Those are teaming teams. They form for a specific purpose for a specific period of time. All the lines that you see, those are documented communication paths. So I have a communication, internal project communication document that shows how all these teams communicate with each other and what the flow of communication is up. So you see up here, I don't know if you can read that, this says project sponsor. So the communication all flows eventually up to that project sponsor. But there's lots of internal communication that happens. So the purpose of this is to set and manage expectations. So what are you expecting your team members to do? How do you want the teams, the different teams, to interact with each other? Set those really clear expectations. Do you want weekly reports? Do you want them to communicate via chat? How frequently do you want them to meet? What are people's preferred communication style? A question I often ask people when I first meet them or first start interacting with them or on a team with them, what's your preferred communication style? Do you want me to email you? Do you want me to call you? Do you want me to send you a chat? And that's important within a teaming team to talk about because and come to an agreement on what your communication methods are going to be. And then transparency. You're probably going to hear me say the word transparency several times. It is so important. So not only do I create this document of this communication methods and styles, and I document it, and it's out there. To me, this was published in the project charter. It was sent out to all the project team members. This particular project, there were over 60 people on the distribution list for all the project communications. It was very transparent of what the expectations were. I'm going to stop and see if there's questions about that.
Still going great.
Thank you. So next is about communicating up, down, and out. So communicating up. So I know every organization is different, but up to me is your steering committee, your sponsors, your executives. And how we communicate with those from our teaming team is very different based on who we're talking to. And who communicates to those is different. And again, I go back to documenting. Who is expected to communicate with the sponsor? Who is expected to communicate to the steering committee? So make sure, again, that that's documented and transparent. So I have some recommendations for these different communications. When you're communicating up, it's important to be concise. People at this level have very little time. They can't read a 15-page proposal. They're going to want that executive summary that's 1 page or less up front to really be able to hit the high points. Being risk aware. So what are the risks of the decision that you've made or the decision that you're proposing? What's the pitfalls that they want to be aware of? They want to see financials. This is really where the financials, where I vary a little bit on transparency. And again, I know this varies by organization and by project. Where I'm working, only a key set of people have access to the financials, and that's this level that you're communicating up. So you want to be careful about that, of course. Timely. Your sponsors, your executives, your steering committee, they do not want to get caught out not knowing information. And they don't want to be in a meeting where someone says, oh, I heard that this project is doing so-and-so. So if you think something is going to happen, might happen, a decision is upcoming, or there's some event, make sure you communicate that in a timely manner so that this level here does not get caught unaware. Very important. And that again goes to transparency. I am very transparent with my steering committee and sponsors. I say, hey, this might be a problem. It's going on the risk log, and here's the reasons it's going on the risk log. I want to make you aware of it. Here's the probabilities of this happening. Or this is something we heard. It's not going on a log yet, but we want to make you aware. Now, that's not to say that you want to spam, you know, your steering committee or your sponsors, but make sure you're transparent. If it's something that they need to know about, make sure they do in a timely manner. Communicating out, that's your stakeholders in your community. So, you know, when we talk about communication, we often think about this out. That's the communication that we most often think of. And most of us know how to do this. You highlight your key takeaways. What from this email, or what from this newsletter, what from this flyer, this digital sign, what do they need to know? Communicate early, get the message out there. I can't remember the number, maybe someone can help me, but I think it's someone has to hear something 6 times before they remember it. So communicating early and over communicating, making sure that they hear the message, that key takeaway over and over and over. Get it so that it's just part of their memory, something they're going to know, especially if you're talking about big changes, big rollouts. We're right now in the middle of a Workday implementation, and you know we're a year out from going live, and we are communicating.
So Christy, I actually looked it up, and it is the rule of 7. It's a marketing rule that says, I was just interested, that says a prospect needs to hear the advertiser's message at least 7 times before they'll take action.
7, I was close. Yeah,
you were very close. Maybe your customers are fast.
Maybe, but we're higher ed, so I'll go with maybe 8. But 7, yeah, the rule of 7s, and I found it to be true. Again, you know, I've worked in communications, and I work on a communications heavy team right now, and you have to get that key takeaway, that key message out at least 7 times, and get it in front of people, get it so that they take that to heart. Multimodal, so I'll use the Canvas project that we based this on for an example. We were trying to get the message out, right? And on a college campus, we all know there's lots of different ways to do that, but students are a very hard group to get to, maybe not on your campus, but on every campus I've ever worked on. So we did things like, we did table tents, we did digital signs, we did drawings on chalk walls in the university center. We painted one of the underpasses where students walk through every day. And then we, of course, we did emails and the traditional pop-up messages and things like that. But multimodal communication, I think, is key, because you never know how someone is really going to absorb that message. Excuse me. And then the piece of communication that is so often overlooked and is so important is communicating down. I don't like using down because it is a form of out, in my opinion, but communicating down to your team members. So this is from you as a project manager or the leader or other type of manager. You want to make sure that your communications are smart. We all know SMART, right? But you want to make sure that they're specific, actionable, measurable, and my T in this one is transparent. Again, people are going to think the worst. They're going to hear a rumor. Make sure that you're sharing information with your team members so that they know what's coming, they can plan and take all the information and put it into the decisions that they're doing within these teams. Again, specific and actionable, make sure that any feedback that you give them on performance or on documents or anything like that is very specific and very actionable. Don't just say, I don't like this, and do better. That's not the right way to go. I hope, yes.
We have a question.
Oh, great.
Can you please define multimodal communication?
Absolutely. So multimodal just means using different methods of communication. So digital, paper, different types of digital, so just different types of communication. So think about it in terms of learning styles. So you have your tactile learners and your auditory learners and your visual learners. So think about that from a communication standpoint. How do you get that message out to people with different learning styles? Because our learning styles really dictate how we take in information, whether it's in a classroom, outside a classroom, or just absorbing advertisements. Our communication style. So auditory, put a message on campus radio saying what's going on. Your print one's easy. I think your print one's easy. Your digitals, there's much more opportunity for that. Your tactiles, put those table tents out there that people can pick up. Do that chalk wall for your, your artistic minded. So just different types of communication to cater to different learning styles. Does that answer the question? I always look for heads nod. I'm used to seeing people on video.
I think that was good. He hasn't replied back.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions before I move on? All right. So again, this is mostly around communication, but a lot around decisions and actions, being persistent and consistent. I think this goes without saying in most cases, but follow up and follow through. So someone brings you a piece of information, or someone brings you a decision that needs to be made, or an action that needs to be taken, or a question, even a question. Follow up. Make sure that if you don't have the answer to the question, that you say, I don't have the answer, but I'm going to get back to you in X time frame. And then follow through with that. Follow through with your decisions that need to be made or decisions you have made. Follow through on any actions that have been requested of you. So make sure that follow up and follow through. Again, that goes back to communication, but the team needs to be responsible for this. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about someone needs to be in that position of authority within the team to do this. Tell people what you're going to do and do what you told people you would do. Be consistent. Let them know, again, this goes back to communication, but also your actions. Let them know what's coming and then do what you said that was going to be done. So much confusion in terms of change and communication comes from inconsistency. Oh, we told you that this was going to be happening, but then we decided to do this other thing and didn't tell you. And now this is going to affect your job. That's terrible. That leads to lots of distrust. Distrust is bad communications. Don't do that. Please be consistent. Create a communication plan and publish it to your team. So going back again to the transparency, being transparent. That communication plan, there's two different types of communication plans. There's your internal. How are you going to communicate within your project, within your teams? And how are you going to communicate with the community? So two different types of communication plans. Being transparent, again, that goes for all these. I can't say it enough. Don't assume anyone knows anything. This is a lesson that I feel like I learned over and over in my life and my career. Don't assume that people know things. Communicate. If someone already knows that, it's okay. It's okay. Over communicate. assuming someone knows something that they don't know, that kind of goes back to letting people be caught unaware. If you over communicate and make sure that you're being transparent, people are going to know what's going on. And there's always going to be someone who wasn't paying attention and going to claim that they didn't know what was happening, didn't know of a change coming up, but that there's no way to stop that. But in general, assuming that people don't know is the way to go, and making sure you communicate that. And that is particularly important within your team. Don't assume that your team member knows what the action items are. Document those action items. What are we supposed to be doing? What are our next steps? What are our goals? Make sure that's communicated, and don't just make assumptions. Again, use multimodal. I talked about that already. Okay, so avoiding pitfalls. Have your goals, have your team goals. So as a project manager, and I end up setting up a lot of the teams and helping the teams create their goals. They should be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. SMART goals. We all know about SMART goals. I think it's one of the best things I've ever learned, and it is very relevant to everything that I've been talking about. Ask for feedback. Ask for it, give it. Make changes based on the feedback that you give and receive. I like to ask a few questions, both of my supervisor and of my teammates. What am I doing now that I shouldn't be doing? What should I stop doing? And what am I not doing that I should be doing? So tell me how I can make changes to improve my performance and increase the likelihood of a positive outcome. And those are questions we should be asking of ourselves, of our supervisors, and of our teammates. It's important to take and give feedback, and then make sure that you are giving that feedback to your team members as well. If there's something that's not working, if there's a thing that needs to be adjusted, there's an interpersonal issue that needs to be addressed, address it early and make sure that it's not affecting your outcomes. Communication, again, relevant, timely, transparent, with a clear takeaway. So one thing as a project manager, and I don't know if there's any other project managers on the line, I will say that one of the most important things that you can do as a project manager or a project leader, or just someone in this position, even if that's not your actual job, invest the time. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but investing the time, attending these meetings, making sure that the communication is clear and relevant, going and asking for the feedback and making the changes based on that feedback, setting those goals, creating those teams, checking in on the teams, attending their meetings, following up on action items. Invest the time. It's worth it. The outcome is going to be better for it when you invest that time in your teams. I recommend, highly recommend actually, having weekly one-on-ones or bi-weekly, depending on the pace of your project, weekly or bi-weekly one-on-ones with each of your team members. Even if it's you don't have any specific items to cover specific to outcomes, which you usually will, it's a good time for you to connect, especially in a remote environment. We're completely remote right now. And those one-on-ones that I have with the team members are very, very important to keep that connection, keep those lines of communication open. Okay, this is a good time to pause for questions, if anyone has any.
Checking. Oh, we have a question. What is the structure of your one-on-ones and how long are they?
So they're typically 30 minutes. And some I do bi-weekly and some I do weekly, depending on the team and the person, and how big you're looking at. So typically the structure, and it varies a little bit, but we go over, talk about what they're working on. I ask if they have any problems that they need me to escalate or need my assistance with. I give them any relevant information that I have or any tasks I have for them. And then we go over any outstanding tasks from the previous time that need to be followed up on. Any other questions from chat?
Yes, there's a follow-up. How
Okay.
do you decide which team members you meet with weekly versus bi-weekly?
So I'll be honest with you, on my current projects, it's a little bit schedule based. We're incredibly busy right now, so it's a little bit schedule based, but it's a little bit like pace of the work. So there are certain team members that I meet with weekly just because the pace of their work means things are changing very quickly, and the decisions need to be made and action items are changing very, very quickly. Those are weekly. Things where it's a little bit slower pace of work, where you might not have things that are changing every week, but you have kind of bigger picture, longer range items, I meet with them bi-weekly. Typically, I'm working on a pretty long range project right now, but when I was working on the Canvas project, which was a 18-month, 2-year project, ended up being longer because of COVID, but met weekly with the vast majority of the team members. So it's a little bit personal, but I recommend weekly if at all possible. If you find yourself with no topics to cover in a weekly, that probably means you can move to a bi-weekly.
That's good advice. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, I should have updated this slide. So use technology. So when I say I'm busy, this is actually a little bit of an underestimation. I get 50 to 75 actionable emails per day, 15 chat conversations, 2 to 3 drop-bys, an average of 4 in-person meetings per day. So this has changed significantly in a work from home environment. The emails, slightly more, probably about the same. Chat conversations, I would at least triple that. My chat conversations have gone up through the roof because you don't get the drop-bys anymore. You don't have people dropping by your desk because we're all working remotely. And 4 in-person meetings a day have gone to an average of 6 to 8 in-person meetings per day. So how do you manage all this work in that? And I know everybody's in the same boat. I'm not special or, more busy than the average person. I know that. So tools I use, email flags. I was saying yesterday, my Outlook search stopped working. And I said to myself out loud, because I'm home by myself, Outlook, how am I supposed to do my job? I rely on flagged emails. I have over 8,000 items in my inbox right now. Flagging emails is literally the way I do my job. And I wish I could show you guys my monitor right now. And when I say I use technology, I do, but also I don't. I'll just hold it up to the webcam. Completely surrounding my monitor are sticky notes of varying colors, and they all have the priority is based on the color. So if you're an analog person, I love sticky notes. I have different color sticky notes for different priorities, and they surround my monitor, and it's a really nice feeling to be able to take that note off and put it in the recycle when you're done with that action item. It's one action item per sticky note, and really it's the way I live my life right now. A planner, I joke about a planner that 2020 is my fault because I bought a planner. So if you're a planner person, absolutely have your planner. I like a day-by-day planner so that you can really make your notes. I use it for action items, making sure that I'm not forgetting any of those key items. Calendar blocks, I use this extensively. Block out time on your calendar to do specific tasks, even if that task is just working by yourself. Particularly when that task is working by yourself, block that time out on your calendar. Make it a meeting, ask people to respect your calendar blocks like we do, and protect that time for yourself to do your work. When you're in meetings back to back, it's really hard to manage all these communications. And the last one is a whiteboard. I don't know if any of you are physically in the office anymore. I use whiteboards a lot. I'm a very visual thinker. That has kind of been replaced by the sticky notes and little doodles on my desk to replace the whiteboard. We do use some digital whiteboarding tools. and various things. We use Zoom and has annotation that you can use in there. And we use that pretty extensively as well in lieu of a whiteboard. But there's also been times when I've scribbled something on a piece of paper and taken a picture of it to share with my teammates. So in this, particular work from home environment, we have to make a few changes to our technology and how we approach our work management. So I'd love to hear, I'm always looking for new tools and tips and ways to manage work. I would love to hear if any of you have any ideas on that or ways that you manage your work, because that is actually the end of my presentation, and I'd love to discuss anything that has been said or any questions you might have.
I really like your sticky note technique. I'm an electronic to-do list user. I actually use Todoist, and I do prioritize my tasks. I usually do a weekly planning on Sunday to look at what I'm able to accomplish this week. The last couple weeks have been really frustrating. I'm not making my weekly goals, and a lot of my daily goals carry right on over to the next day.
Yeah.
I don't really have a solution for that. I just want to chime in with we're all feeling the same way.
I forgot to mention, I use Planner, Microsoft Planner. I don't know if anyone else uses that. It has a nice integration with Outlook.
We're a Google campus.
Show my stacks of stickies here on my desk.
So what are do you actually do 5 priorities?
There's 3. I have an extra. So pink, which used to be red, but I can only get pink, is highest priority, anything critical. So I shouldn't have any pinks on my monitor at any given time.
Oh,
Orange is a medium priority. This needs to get done. Yellow is a pretty standard priority, and blue is informational.
Nice.
So there's usually a few blues hanging out,
So I can see, and I probably could accomplish that. I can flag my to-do items. Dan Herrick is saying he uses a planner, and he does not do Outlook, but they're a Teams campus as well. Nick is getting things done, aficionado, which I am too. That's where I started it. And he uses a mix of Apple Notes and reminders to stay on top. He does do some time blocking. He tries to block time to deal with the whirlwind in addition to key objectives. I find that since we're not in the office and we don't have that opportunity for a quick drop-in, everyone feels like they have to schedule a meeting with me. Last week, our workday officially ends at 4:15, and last week, someone scheduled my 3 to 4 p.m. time slot on a Friday. Come on. Okay, so you do use Outlook, Dan, just not the Outlook integration. I get it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm working, I usually start work about 7 in the morning, and I'm still sitting here at my desk at 5 or 5:30. It's long days these days. It really is.
It is. I do know that our customers are appreciative of what we do. So
absolutely, yes.
Yeah. All right. Does anybody have any other questions? Well, Christy, I thank you so much for sharing your presentation with us. I know it's a busy time of year, and I'm pleased that you made time to share this information.
Happy to do it, and happy to answer any questions if anyone thinks of any after the fact. My email address, I'm not sure if it was in the webinar, but it's Christy, K-R-I-S-T-I, Lenz, L-E-N-Z, at woostville.edu.
Well, thank you, Christy. All right, everybody, have a great afternoon and evening.
Thanks all for